Aaron pressed his boots into the soft soil, his helmet light casting long shadows across the glowing land. The planet was unlike anything he had ever seen. Tall trees of crystal rose high above him, their branches shimmering in colors that shifted with every small breeze. The forest looked alive, as if it was breathing with light. Some crystals glowed blue like calm water, others green like fresh leaves, and some even pulsed with red fire. Aaron stopped for a moment, staring in silence. He had traveled with his survey team to explore this world, far from Earth. The mission was simple: study the strange crystals, measure their energy, and report back. But standing here, Aaron felt the mission was not enough to explain what he was seeing. This place was not only beautiful, it felt sacred. The rest of his team was camped near the landing site, scanning samples and recording numbers. Aaron, always curious, had wandered farther than he should have. His commander had told him, "Stay close, don't get lost." But curiosity burned inside him, and the glowing path of crystals seemed to invite him deeper into the forest. As he walked, the air grew quieter. The usual hum of machines, the voices of his team, even the soft wind all faded. Only the faint song of the crystals remained, a soft humming that he could almost feel in his chest. It made him slow his steps, listening carefully. The deeper he went, the brighter the crystals grew. They reflected in his visor, painting his face in shifting colors. Aaron reached out, touching one of the tall crystal trunks. To his surprise, it felt warm, like holding a hand. He pulled back quickly, his heart beating faster. "Alive," he whispered to himself. "These things feel alive." Suddenly, he heard movement. A soft sound like feet brushing against crystal grass. Aaron froze, his eyes scanning the forest. Between the glowing trunks, a shadow moved. His first thought was an animal, maybe some strange creature of this world. But then the figure stepped closer, and his breath caught in his throat. It was not an animal. A tall figure, slim and graceful, stood just a few steps away. The light of the crystals revealed smooth skin with a faint shimmer, like the glow of the forest itself lived inside her. Her hair fell down like flowing silver threads, catching the light in 100 tiny sparkles. Her eyes were large, bright, and filled with a strange curiosity, just as Aaron's were. Aaron took a slow step back, unsure if he should run or stay. The figure tilted her head, watching him carefully. She didn't move closer, but she didn't leave either. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken questions. "Hello," Aaron said softly, his voice trembling. He lifted his hands to show he meant no harm. The figure blinked but said nothing. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to speak, but the words did not come. Aaron pointed to his chest. "Aaron," he said, slowly. He tapped his suit, then repeated, "Aaron." The figure's eyes followed his movement. After a pause, she touched her own chest lightly. Her voice was soft, like wind passing through the crystals. "Myra." The sound of her name echoed gently through the glowing forest, and for a moment, Aaron forgot where he was. The tension in his chest eased, replaced by wonder. This was not only a planet full of glowing crystals, it was also home. And standing before him was someone who belonged to it. Neither of them moved closer. Both seemed caught between caution and curiosity. The crystals around them glowed brighter, as if reacting to the meeting. Aaron felt a strange warmth rise inside him, the same warmth he had felt when he touched the crystal earlier. He wanted to ask questions. Who was she? How long had her people lived here? Did she know the secrets of the glowing forest? But words failed him, and even if he spoke, would she understand? For now, silence was their only language, and it spoke loudly enough. After a long moment, Myra turned her head, as if she had heard something deeper in the forest. She gave Aaron one last searching look, then stepped back into the crystal shadows. The light swallowed her figure, and in seconds, she was gone. Aaron stood frozen, staring at the empty space where she had been. His heart still beat fast, and his mind filled with questions. He knew one thing for certain: he had to see her again. The mission had brought him to study crystals, but now he felt there was something more important waiting for him in the heart of the forest. Something that had a name, spoken in a voice soft as light. Myra. As Aaron turned back toward camp, the crystals around him seemed to glow a little brighter, as if they knew a new story had just begun. The campfire burned low as the rest of the survey team settled in for the night. Aaron sat a little away from the others, his eyes drifting toward the glowing trees beyond the camp. He could still see her in his mind: the shimmer of her skin, the silver of her hair, the quiet way she had spoken her name. Myra. He should have told his commander about what he saw. Meeting someone who lived here was important. It could change their mission completely. But something inside him whispered to stay silent. If the others knew, they would come with scanners, questions, and rules. They would see her as part of their report, not as a person. Aaron didn't want that. That night, he lay awake under the stars, the soft hum of the crystals echoing faintly in the distance. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard her voice, gentle and uncertain, as if it carried a piece of the forest itself. Sleep did not come easily. When morning arrived, the commander ordered the team to spread out and gather more samples. Aaron's task was to scan a line of crystals leading deeper into the forest. He nodded quickly, hiding his excitement. It was the perfect chance to return to where he had met her. The forest welcomed him back with its colors and sounds. He walked slowly, letting the glowing light guide him. Hours passed, and he began to wonder if Myra would come. Perhaps she had decided not to return. Perhaps she was only a dream. Then he heard it: the soft brush of footsteps on the crystal ground. Aaron's heart leapt. He turned, and there she was. Myra stood half hidden behind a tall crystal trunk, her bright eyes watching him carefully. Aaron smiled and lifted his hand in greeting. "Myra," he said softly. For a moment, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she stepped into the light. The crystals glowed brighter around her, as if the forest itself was happy she had returned. She gave a small nod, her silver hair catching the colors of the crystals. Aaron pointed again to his chest. "Aaron." Then he pointed to her. "Myra." Her lips curved in the faintest smile, and she nodded once more. She spoke his name softly, testing it on her tongue. "Aaron." The sound filled him with warmth. It was a simple exchange of names, yet it felt like a bridge between two worlds. He wanted to talk more, but he didn't know how. So he tried another way. He crouched down and picked up a small glowing crystal shard from the ground. Holding it gently, he lifted it toward her. She tilted her head, studying him. Then she reached out and touched the shard with her fingers. The crystal brightened, glowing with a soft blue light. Aaron gasped, his eyes wide. Myra let out a quiet laugh, the first sound of joy he had heard from her. She then placed her hand against one of the larger crystal trunks, and it began to shine with colors that rippled like waves. She gestured for him to try. Aaron hesitated but followed her lead. He pressed his palm to the crystal surface. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the crystal glowed faintly. The light was weaker than Myra's, but it was there. Myra's eyes widened with surprise, and for the first time, she looked at him not with caution but with wonder. The two of them spent the rest of the day sharing in silence, using gestures and the crystals to communicate. Myra taught him how humming softly could change the color of the crystal glow. Aaron, in return, drew shapes in the dirt, stars, trees, even a rough sketch of Earth, and Myra studied them with deep interest. Though they could not share words, they shared curiosity. And with each passing hour, the distance between them grew smaller. As the sun began to set, the forest glowed even brighter, painting everything in gold and violet light. Aaron knew he had to return to camp before his absence was noticed. He pointed to the forest, then to his heart, then back to her, trying to show that he wished to see her again. Myra tilted her head, then gave a soft nod. Before leaving, Aaron placed his hand against the crystal trunk one last time. To his surprise, Myra placed her hand beside his. The crystal flared, glowing brighter than it had all day. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Then Aaron stepped back, his chest full of emotions he could not name. He turned and walked toward the camp, but every step felt heavy with longing. Behind him, Myra watched until the trees swallowed him from sight. That night, lying under the stars again, Aaron knew the truth. His mission was no longer about samples and reports. Something greater had begun in the crystal forest, and it had spoken through a name, a smile, and a shared light. Myra. The days that followed were busy for the survey team. Machines hummed, scanners beeped, and the commander gave constant orders. But while the others measured numbers and filled reports, Aaron's thoughts were far away. Every moment he could spare, he looked toward the glowing forest, waiting for his chance to return. At last, when the team was occupied with loading samples, Aaron slipped quietly into the trees. His heart beat faster with every step, not from fear, but from hope. Would she be there? Or had she decided never to meet him again? He walked deeper, following the soft hum of the crystals. Soon, a familiar sound reached his ears, gentle footsteps moving over crystal ground. He turned quickly, and there she was. Myra stood beneath a tall crystal tree, her silver hair shining in the golden light. Aaron smiled with relief. He lifted his hand in greeting. Myra. Her lips curved into a small smile, and she answered softly, Aaron. The simple sound of his name from her mouth filled him with warmth. She stepped closer this time, less cautious than before. Her bright eyes watched him with curiosity, as if she wanted to understand everything about him. Aaron pointed to the crystal trunk beside them and touched it. The crystal glowed faintly. Myra placed her hand beside his, and it shone brighter, humming softly. Then she lifted her hand and made a soft sound, almost like singing. The crystal's color shifted to a warm gold. Aaron's eyes widened in wonder. He tried to copy her, humming awkwardly. At first, nothing happened. But when he closed his eyes and focused, the crystal glowed faintly blue. Myra let out a light laugh, soft as wind, and her eyes sparkled with delight. They spent hours experimenting together. Myra showed him how different tones made different colors appear. A higher sound gave green light, a lower one gave red. Aaron practiced again and again, and though his attempts were clumsy, Myra encouraged him with nods and soft smiles. When they grew tired, they sat on a flat crystal stone. Aaron picked up a stick and drew shapes on the ground. He drew the round outline of Earth, then stars, and a small figure of a human. Myra leaned closer, studying his drawings with interest. She touched the round circle and tilted her head in question. Earth, Aaron said slowly, tapping the circle. My home. Myra repeated the word softly. Earth. Then she placed her finger against her chest. Myra. She pointed to the forest around them. Home. Aaron understood. She was showing him that this glowing place was her world, just as Earth was his. He nodded with respect, then placed his hand over his chest. Friend, he said, pointing to both of them. Myra frowned slightly, not understanding. Aaron thought quickly. He took two small stones and placed them side by side. Then he tapped one stone. Aaron. He tapped the other. Myra. Finally, he pushed them closer until they touched. Friend. Myra's eyes softened. She repeated the word carefully, as if tasting it. Friend. That moment felt important, like a promise between them. As the light in the forest began to change with the setting sun, Myra rose and beckoned him to follow. Aaron hesitated but trusted her. She led him to a small clearing where the crystals grew in the shape of an arch. When the wind moved through them, the crystals sang together, filling the air with gentle music. Aaron stood amazed. The sound wrapped around him, soft and beautiful, like a living melody. Myra closed her eyes and raised her hands, letting the music flow through her. Her expression was peaceful, almost glowing with joy. Aaron watched in silence, his heart full. He realized something then: Myra was not only part of the forest. She was its voice, its heart. To see her here was to see the true spirit of this world. But the peace did not last long. In the distance, Aaron heard the faint crackle of his communicator. His commander's voice echoed sharply, ordering all team members to return. Aaron froze, knowing he had been away too long. Myra opened her eyes, sensing his worry. She tilted her head, silently asking what was wrong. Aaron pointed to the device on his arm, then back toward the camp. Go, he said quietly. Myra's smile faded. She stepped closer, her bright eyes searching his face as if to ask if he would return. Aaron placed his hand gently over his chest, then pointed to her, then back to the forest, repeating what they had shared earlier. Friend. For a long moment, Myra stood still. Then she nodded softly, her silver hair catching the fading light. Aaron turned and walked quickly back toward camp, his heart torn between duty and desire. Behind him, the forest sang its gentle song, and Myra's figure slowly faded into the glowing trees. That night, while the commander scolded him for wandering too far, Aaron barely heard the words. His thoughts were only of Myra, her smile, her voice, her world. He knew he would return again, no matter the risk. The crystal forest had given him more than beauty. It had given him a bond he could not explain. And it was only the beginning. The next morning came with heavy clouds drifting over the glowing forest. Aaron moved quickly with his duties, gathering samples and scanning crystals with the team. On the outside, he looked calm, but inside, his thoughts were restless. He had spent the entire night remembering Myra's smile and the way the forest sang when she raised her hands. He could not wait to see her again. When the chance finally came, Aaron slipped away into the forest, his steps fast but careful. He followed the glowing paths, deeper and deeper, until the noise of the camp faded away. Soon, he reached the familiar clearing, and his heart eased. She was there, waiting. Myra stood beside a tall crystal tree, her silver hair catching the soft light. When she saw him, her face brightened with a small smile. Aaron raised his hand in greeting. Myra. She answered in the same gentle way, Aaron. They came together at the crystal arch where the forest sang with the wind. Aaron wanted to share everything about Earth, about the stars, about the wonder he felt here. But he noticed something different in Myra's eyes. The usual sparkle of curiosity was mixed with worry. Myra gestured for him to sit, and she sat across from him. Slowly, carefully, she began to speak in broken words. Her language was not easy for Aaron to follow, but over time, they had learned enough gestures and simple sounds to understand. Humans, not safe, she said softly, pointing toward the distant camp. Take. Break. Forest hurt. Aaron's chest tightened. He shook his head quickly. Not me. I will not hurt. He pressed his hand to his chest, then pointed to her, then to the glowing trees. Protect. Myra looked at him for a long moment, searching his face. Then she lowered her eyes. Elders, fear. If see you, gone. She swept her hand through the air as if to show him being taken away. Aaron understood. Her people did not trust humans. They believed that his kind would only harm the forest, not treasure it. He could not blame them after all, many humans had taken without care from worlds they touched. But hearing it from Myra filled him with sadness. I want, stay, he said slowly, trying to form words she could understand. He tapped his heart. Friend. You. Her eyes softened, but the worry did not leave. She reached out and touched the crystal between them. The light flickered weakly, as if reflecting her unease. Danger, she whispered. For the first time since meeting her, Aaron felt a wall between them. Not one of dislike, but one built from fear. Myra was torn between the bond they had formed and the rules of her people. Silence stretched between them. The forest hummed softly, but even its song seemed quieter, more distant. Aaron's mind raced. He wanted to promise her that everything would be fine, that his team would never hurt her world. But deep inside, he knew he could not control the choices of others. Finally, Myra lifted her eyes. She placed her hand gently against the crystal, and Aaron did the same. This time the glow was stronger, warmer. She met his gaze and said quietly, trust. The word was simple, but it carried the weight of her heart. Aaron nodded firmly. Trust. For a while, they sat together, hands against the crystal, letting the light flow between them. It was their way of speaking without words, of telling each other that even if fear surrounded them, there was still hope. But as the sun began to fall, Myra stood and looked toward the deeper part of the forest. Her expression grew serious. She stepped closer, her voice urgent. No more, many days. Elders close. If see, no return. Aaron's stomach dropped. She was warning him that they could not meet as often, not while her people were watching closely. The thought of not seeing her made his chest ache, but he forced himself to nod. Safe, he said softly. I want you safe. Myra reached out as if to touch his hand, but then she stopped, her fingers hovering in the glowing air. Instead, she gave him one last look, deep, steady, filled with unspoken meaning. Then she stepped back, her figure melting into the crystal shadows. Aaron remained in the clearing long after she had gone. The forest glowed around him, but he felt its beauty differently now. It was no longer only wonder. It was also fragile, at risk. As he walked back to camp, his heart was heavy but determined. He could not let fear take away what they had found. Even if her people doubted him, even if his commander questioned him, he knew one truth: his bond with Myra was real. And bonds built on trust were worth protecting. The days after Myra's warning felt longer than usual. Aaron stayed with his team, doing his duties as expected, but his heart was restless. Every time he looked at the crystal forest, he felt the pull to go back. He wanted to see her again, but her words echoed in his mind. No more many days. Elders close. His commander noticed his distraction. One evening, as the team gathered around their camp's firelight, the commander studied him closely. "You've been wandering too far," he said firmly. "Every time I turn around, you're missing. This forest is dangerous. We don't know what lives here. Stay close to camp." "That's an order." Aaron lowered his head, hiding his thoughts. "Yes, sir." But inside, he knew the commander's warning came too late. He had already found something in the forest, someone that he could not walk away from. That night, Aaron lay awake, staring at the stars above the treetops. He remembered Myra's eyes filled with worry, the way she said trust with such weight. He promised himself that he would not break that trust. Even if he had to wait days, weeks, he would see her again. But Myra, too, was restless. In the hidden part of the forest, she sat with her people as the elders spoke. Their voices were calm but firm. "The humans take too much," one elder said, his voice echoing in the crystal chamber. "They cut, they break, they do not understand. We cannot let them come deeper." Myra kept her head bowed, but her thoughts were far away. She remembered Aaron's smile, his clumsy humming with the crystals, his effort to understand her language. He was different. But how could she make her people believe it? "Stay away from them," another elder warned. "If they come closer, we must drive them out." "You are young, Myra, but you must listen. Their kind does not belong here." Myra's heart ached. She wanted to speak, to tell them about the human who had touched the crystals with care, who had promised trust. But her voice stayed silent. If she spoke, they would forbid her from ever stepping near the forest's edge again. That night, Myra slipped away into the glowing paths, her feet moving without thought. She told herself she should not meet him, that it was dangerous for them both. Yet her heart pulled her forward. At the same time, Aaron moved quietly through the camp. His commander had gone inside the main tent, leaving the others busy with machines. Aaron seized the chance and walked quickly into the trees. His chest tightened with each step, afraid she might not come. But when he reached the clearing beneath the crystal arch, she was there. Myra stood waiting, her silver hair glowing softly in the light. For a moment, they only looked at each other, both filled with relief and worry. Aaron raised his hand slowly. "Myra." She whispered back, "Aaron." He wanted to smile, but he could see the shadow in her eyes. She stepped closer and touched the crystal between them. Its glow was faint, weaker than before. "Danger," she said softly. "Elders, watch." Aaron nodded. "Commander, watch too," he replied, pointing back toward the camp. "Not safe." They both fell silent. For the first time, the forest around them felt heavy. The crystals still hummed, but the music was softer, almost sad. Aaron placed his hand on his chest. "I want, stay. You. Friend." Myra's eyes softened, but she shook her head. If elders see, no more. She made a sweeping motion with her hand, showing separation. The thought of losing her made Aaron's heart ache. He stepped forward quickly, not touching her but meeting her gaze with determination. "I will not leave," he said firmly, his voice steady. He pointed to the forest around them. "I protect." Myra studied him for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then she touched the crystal again. This time, it glowed brighter, filling the clearing with warm light. Her lips curved in the faintest smile. But before either of them could speak again, a sound broke the silence, a crackle of static. Aaron's communicator buzzed at his side. His commander's voice cut through sharply. "Aaron, report. Where are you?" Aaron's heart jumped. He quickly silenced the device, his breath caught in his throat. Myra's eyes widened with fear. She stepped back, shaking her head. "No safe. Go." Aaron hesitated, torn between obeying and staying. But Myra's urgency left no choice. He gave her one last look, pressing his hand over his chest. "Trust." She whispered the word back, her voice trembling. "Trust." Then Aaron turned and ran toward the camp, the glowing forest blurring around him. When he arrived, his commander was waiting, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "You were gone again," he said coldly. "What are you hiding, Aaron?" Aaron stood stiffly, his mind racing. He could not reveal Myra. Not now, not when both his commander and her people were watching closely. He forced himself to shake his head. "Nothing, sir. Just scouting too far." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Next time, you'll answer for it?" That night, Aaron sat alone, staring into the forest. Both sides were closing in, his commander suspicious, Myra's elders full of fear. The path between them was narrowing, but his heart knew one truth: he could not turn back. Some bonds were worth the risk. The next morning, Aaron's heart beat faster than ever. He could not stop thinking about Myra. Despite the warnings from her elders and the constant watch of his commander, he knew he had to see her. The forest called him, and so did she. He waited until his team was busy with a heavy scanner at the edge of the forest. Quietly, he slipped away, moving quickly over the glowing crystal paths. The hum of the forest filled his ears, a melody that seemed to guide him to her. When he reached the familiar clearing, Myra was already there. She stood beneath the crystal arch, her silver hair catching the morning light. Her eyes widened when she saw him. She had warned him to stay away, yet here he was. "Aaron," she whispered, a mix of relief and fear in her voice. "Myra," he replied softly. He wanted to hold her hand, to promise her that everything would be all right, but he knew that even the smallest touch might draw attention. They moved closer to the crystal arch and began experimenting with the glowing stones again. Aaron tried humming a simple tune, and Myra followed, their voices weaving together. The crystals shimmered in response, creating colors that danced across their faces. For a few moments, it felt as though the world belonged only to them. But then, a sudden sharp sound broke the spell. Aaron froze. In the shadows of the trees, a group of Myra's people appeared. The elders. Their expressions were serious, their eyes fixed on the two of them. Aaron felt a chill run down his spine. "Myra," one elder called, his voice echoing through the forest. "Why is a human here? Do you not remember our warning?" Myra stepped forward quickly, her hands raised. "Elders, he, safe," she said, her voice trembling. "He, trust, forest." The elders' eyes narrowed. One stepped closer to Aaron. We do not know him. We cannot trust him. Why has he come to our sacred place? Aaron's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, to explain, but the words in their language did not come easily. He stepped forward, placing his hand on his chest. Friend, he said simply, pointing to Myra, then back to the forest, and finally to himself. Myra repeated his gesture, touching her chest, then the forest, then him. The elders looked at the glowing crystals around them. For a moment, silence filled the air. The hum of the forest seemed to grow louder, as if listening. One elder spoke slowly, his voice calm but firm. Words are not enough. Actions must show truth. Do you promise to protect the forest, human? Do you promise to respect its life and its people? Aaron looked into the elders' eyes, feeling the weight of their judgment. Yes, he said firmly. I promise. I will not harm. I will protect. I will respect. Myra placed her hand on his shoulder, a silent encouragement. The elder's gaze softened slightly, but others remained uncertain. Another elder stepped forward. How can we know? Humans have taken before. They have broken what they touched. We cannot risk it. Aaron bowed his head slightly, understanding their fear. I cannot speak for others, he said honestly. But I will show you. I will protect the forest. I will care for Myra and your people. I will not leave harm behind. The air was tense. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Finally, the eldest of the council stepped forward. She studied Aaron carefully, her eyes full of thought. Then, slowly, she raised her hand. Very well, she said. We will give you a chance. You may remain here, but your presence will be watched. One mistake, and the forest will close to you forever. Aaron's heart leapt with relief. He nodded solemnly. I understand. Thank you. Myra stepped closer, her hand brushing lightly against his. The crystals around them glowed brighter, almost as if the forest itself approved. She smiled softly, the first genuine smile in hours, and whispered, Trust. Yes, Aaron said, his voice steady. Trust. For the first time, they stood together without fear, knowing that the elders had given them a fragile but real chance. The forest hummed with life around them, the colors shifting and dancing like a celebration. That night, Aaron and Myra walked along the crystal paths, their hands close but not touching, sharing the quiet joy of this victory. They had faced the council and won the right to continue their bond. But both knew it was only the beginning. The forest was alive, the elders were watching, and the path ahead would not always be easy. Still, for now, they allowed themselves a small happiness, letting the glow of the crystals fill their hearts. They had earned a moment of peace, and it was beautiful. The days that followed were filled with quiet excitement. Aaron returned to his duties with the survey team, but now his heart was lighter. The elders had given him a chance, and Myra was waiting for him in the glowing forest. Their bond, fragile at first, was slowly growing stronger, like the soft light of dawn spreading across the crystal trees. Each time Aaron slipped away from camp, Myra was there to greet him. She taught him more about the forest, the way the crystals could hum in harmony, how the wind could make colors shimmer like dancing flames, and the hidden paths that only her people knew. Aaron, in return, shared stories of Earth, of the stars, and of human curiosity. They laughed at the differences in their worlds and found joy in the little things they could share. One afternoon, Myra led him to a place he had never seen before. The clearing was wide, with crystals forming towers like tall spires reaching toward the sky. The sunlight filtered through them, scattering rainbows across the ground. Aaron's eyes widened in awe. "This, special," Myra said softly. She placed her hand on a large crystal trunk, and it began to glow with a gentle pulse. Aaron stepped closer and placed his hand beside hers. The crystal's light strengthened, humming with warmth and life. For the first time, Aaron realized that the forest was responding not just to Myra, but to the connection between them. Their bond was not only emotional, it had a tangible presence in this world. The forest, alive and sentient, recognized the trust and care they shared. They spent hours there, experimenting with the crystals, laughing when colors flickered unexpectedly, and marveling at the music that filled the air. Aaron felt a sense of peace he had never known. For the first time on this distant planet, he truly belonged somewhere. But even in happiness, there were reminders of responsibility. Aaron and Myra had to be careful, respecting both her people's rules and his mission's demands. The elders had allowed them to meet, but any mistake could close the forest to him forever. Still, each moment they spent together strengthened their trust, and that trust became a quiet power between them. As evening fell, the crystal towers glowed with a soft, golden light. Aaron and Myra sat side by side, their hands close, feeling the hum of the forest under their fingertips. Aaron glanced at Myra, her silver hair catching the last rays of sunlight, and felt a surge of admiration. She had shown him a world beyond his understanding, and in return, he had shown her a small piece of his. "Myra," he said softly, breaking the comfortable silence. She turned to him, her eyes bright with curiosity and warmth. "Yes, Aaron. I want to stay here. Not just visit, not just for a little while. I want to learn, to help, to be part of your world," he said honestly, his voice steady. "I want to protect it, and you." Myra's eyes widened, and she reached out, lightly touching his hand. The crystal beneath them flared with bright, warm light. She smiled, the kind of smile that reached her eyes and filled her entire face. "Stay, yes," she whispered. The words filled Aaron with joy, but he also understood the weight behind them. Staying here meant committing to the forest, respecting her people, and choosing this new world over everything he had known. Yet the choice felt natural. His heart was already part of this place, and Myra had become a piece of it he could not leave behind. Over the following weeks, Aaron's presence in the forest became more accepted. The elders watched carefully, but they also began to notice his care and respect. He repaired small damage caused by the survey, carefully followed the paths Myra showed him, and treated the crystals with reverence. Slowly, suspicion gave way to cautious trust. Myra, too, found happiness in the bond they shared. She had feared the humans, feared the harm they might bring, but Aaron proved that understanding and care could bridge worlds. Together, they discovered the joy of shared exploration, of laughter, and of friendship that had begun to grow into something deeper. One evening, as the sun set behind the crystal towers, Aaron and Myra stood together, their hands brushing lightly. The forest glowed around them, a living tapestry of colors and sounds. Aaron looked at Myra and smiled. "This is home," he said quietly. Myra nodded, her eyes soft and bright. "Home," she repeated. The forest hummed in agreement, the crystals shimmering like a million tiny stars. In that glowing world, two hearts from different worlds had found a bond stronger than fear, stronger than distance. They had discovered trust, friendship, and love all within the shining embrace of the crystal forest. And as they walked hand in hand through the glowing paths, Aaron and Myra knew that whatever challenges might come, they would face them together. The forest had given them a chance, and they had chosen to protect it, each other, and the magic of a connection that could cross worlds. For Aaron and Myra, the desire in the crystal forest was not just a spark of curiosity or longing, it was the beginning of a shared life, bright and alive, in a world that had once seemed impossible.